All right, call to order the zoning board of appeals for the city of Easthampton. Today is Wednesday, February 26, 2020. We have a couple administrative items and then we'll open up the public hearings. First thing is the approval of the January 22nd, 2020 meeting.
I'm sorry, I did not complete those minutes.
Those minutes have not been submitted, so we will do that again at next month's meeting. Correspondence or requests, comment from other boards or committees?
There was an email forwarded, I believe, to the board for comments.
Yes.
So,
That's it?
if that was it, if you responded directly to the planning director, then...
All right. Public speak, if this is an opportunity for anyone who is interested in speaking to anything regarding something that's not on the agenda for this evening. Okay, so at this point we will open up the public hearing. The agenda, first item on the agenda is Susan Moore and Theodore, sorry if I mispronounced this, Olenek. Did I do okay?
Damn good.
All right. You know, after being in this town for a few years, you'll learn how to pronounce these ones. Seeking a special permit for a major home occupation, psychotherapy practice, craniosacral therapy, and private yoga instruction in accordance with section 10.4 and 12.7 of the Easthampton zoning ordinance. Subject property is located at 208 Park Street in zone residential rural B. Okay, would you like to tell us what you have in mind, other than what we see on our presentation here?
Well, I'm retired from the VA as a therapist, so, you know, if you heard, they got an overflow with a lot of veterans. And so they asked me to continue to see veterans as a vendor.
Okay.
And so I said, sure. So we are here to get the approval so I can see them out of the house. We have a nice half a basement that is finished, so instead of renting anywhere, so save some money. So I see the veterans out of that place. Kind of see 6 to 10 a week, something like that. No more than that since I'm retired, so I don't know.
Take it easy. Okay.
And then the other half of that is I left my job as a physical therapist assistant a couple years ago, and I have been in training for craniosacral therapy. I'm also a yoga teacher. I teach at the massage school. So since I just graduated from craniosacral training, I want to open a business doing craniosacral therapy. It's not massage. Clients are fully clothed. It is a hands-on modality, but it's not like, you know, moving around the body and doing like massage type of things.
Okay. All right. Is that a licensed operation?
That is not a license. The craniosacral therapy is not licensed right now. I do have a license as a massage therapist, but I don't work as a massage. Well, I do traveling massage for people with developmental disabilities, but I can't do massage because of my hands. I'm getting old. Can't do it.
You don't say that.
So right now there's no license for it, but I don't know if you're aware that the state of Massachusetts, they're looking at licensing body workers because of the human trafficking. So right now people who are called body workers can work without a state license, but that might change in the future. But right now it wouldn't be a state license.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, with the two of you operating 2 home occupations, the hours of operation are going to be separate. Is that kind of my understanding? That you basically are going to have 1 occupation or 2 occupations, but only one will operate at a time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to see people on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the afternoon. That's it.
Okay.
I need my golf time in the morning.
Why are you looking at you? You know, he knows I need a lot more than that.
Okay. All right. Okay, so combined hours. Yep. All right. And so the standards for a home occupation are pretty, there's 10 quick items. So my thought is we'll just go through the list so we can make sure that everybody knows what's on them. The owner or operator of every home occupation shall reside in the dwelling.
Yes.
Okay. And no more than 33% of the existing gross area of the resident may be devoted to the home occupation. And I think that was, you were good on that, correct?
Yes.
There should be no display or storage of finished goods, raw materials, or inventory. I don't think that's going to be applicable.
A few yoga mats.
There should be no storage of goods, products produced off-site, which is non-applicable. There should be no sale of products or services that are not produced on the premises. You're not going to sell any sort of creams or anything. Okay. No advertising on the premises is permitted other than a small non-electric sign at 2 feet square.
Unless
Okay.
it's my business card.
There you go. The premises in the building in which the home occupation is conducted may not include a feature or design not customary of residential use buildings. It's your home currently, so that's okay. Any newly installed or replaced exterior lighting fixture shall be aimed and shielded as to not shine upward or produce light beyond the boundary of the property of which the home is the home business. Are you going to add an exterior light, or are you going to use the existing exterior lighting? Okay. Any addition or alterations to the building?
No.
Okay. And I don't believe any toxic, explosive, flammable, combustible, corrosive, radioactive, or similar hazardous materials. That was sound. Oh, and the sign. This list keeps going. Off-street parking
Yes.
shall be provided.
I have a question about that, only because you're so close, for one reason, to the school construction site. And you have your 2-car garage, and there's a
Yes.
parking space next to that.
Yes.
How many vehicles are usually in your driveway without your home occupation?
Well, it's just our cars and we park in the garage.
So there are 2 cars.
We each have a car, so they're parked in the garage.
So because I'm thinking it might not be really safe for customers who aren't familiar with Park Street to back out onto Park Street. But if they park in that little parking space next to your garage, they can turn around and
Yeah.
They can,
pull out frontwards rather than
That's how
back out.
that's how visitors do it now.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that
And is
space.
there room for 2 people to do that? You know, if you have a yoga class or
Oh, it
2
is.
yoga people?
Sometimes when we have a party or something like that, a bunch of them just
But you're only going to have one person on site at a time.
Yeah, just only one at a time. Yeah.
I mean, it's possible I might have 2 if I had, a couple of people that wanted to do private yoga, but I have no plans to teach classes. I teach classes outside of my home, so, but I might have 2 people that month.
Okay. All right. Traffic associated with the home occupation shall not put an unreasonable burden on the city. I feel that's applicable. And overnight storage of any kind of vehicle. Don't see that being an issue. Okay. And then this is considered a major home? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 6 more questions. We've already answered one of them because of the major home occupation shall meet the following standards in addition to the standards listed in section 10.43, which was the first section, and 12.79, which we will get to later. Whichever we find is more stricter shall comply. No more than 2 non-resident employees shall be employed. Are you going to employ anyone?
No.
Unless otherwise determined by the zoning board of appeals, hours of operation shall be between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. and on weekends between 10 and 6. And I think that you have that pretty well laid out, that you won't exceed those. So that's good. There should be no increase of traffic to exceed in excess of 2 vehicles per hour.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Unless otherwise allowed by the board, only class 1 and class 2 vehicles. You're not bringing any motor coaches or tractor trailers. Okay. And the premise in the building on which the major home occupation is conducted shall not be made objectionable or detrimental in any manner with the to do this. And I believe that's correct. Okay. Okay, and more forms, as we have more forms. Go to the next set of standards, which is the special permit criteria for approval. Most of these are going to be non-applicable because they're very broad and general. Conformance of this provision of the ordinance of the City of Easthampton, general laws of Massachusetts, and all applicable rules and regulations of state and federal agencies. So you are licensed
Yes.
and will remain licensed.
Yes.
And if no license is required, you will get a license.
Yes, absolutely.
Protection of the city amenities and abutting properties through the minimalization of any detrimental or offensive uses or destruction of unique or important natural, scenic, or historic features on the site. This is if you're doing a development, so it's minimization of traffic, we've already addressed that. Should be no additional sewage or refuge or groundwater. No wetlands, mitigation of adverse impacts on city resources, off-street parking, off-street loading and unloading of vehicles.
No.
That one's not applicable. Most of these are, setback, it's pre-existing. Adequacy of measures for pollution, no. That was easy. But we have to go through the list to make sure we have everything crossed and done. Okay, so we have met all the requirements. The next question is, does the board have any additional questions or concerns concerning the application?
No, I think this is a appropriate home occupation.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, is there anyone in the public who is interested in speaking concerning the application before us? Okay. So given that, we will, I'll make a motion to approve the
Can we make a motion to close the hearing?
We can make a motion to close the hearing. Why, certainly.
How if we opened it, we should
Let's
close?
wait till we do the approval.
No, we have to close the public portion. Okay. Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Uh,
Okay. Any further board discussion? Okay. So I will make a motion to approve the application of Theodore Olenek. Okay, I was close. And Susan Moore of 208 East Park Street seeking a special permit for a major home occupation in their home at 208 Park Street, using the provisions which have been before addressed. Any
They were the
questions?
standards they submitted. They
And
were
the
very,
standards they, yeah,
they were very detailed.
they were. Okay,
Thank you, Jamie.
all right. A second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Tony seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion is made and carried. At this point, Jamie will write up the approval. From there, you will then receive notification that it has been approved and presented to the city clerk. There's then a 20-day appeal period. After that, you will be notified again, and at which point then you need to go to the Hampshire Registry of Deeds and submit it, and then you're good to go. Okay. Congratulations.
All right, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Can I just make a plug real quick? If there's a sign-in sheet that's going around, if you haven't signed in, please do so.
Yeah, we got it.
Or sign in now.
Good night, everyone.
Folks ready? Okay, our next applicant is Gary and Sandra Campbell seeking a variance to a lot size requirement for a two-family residence in accordance with section 13.1 of the Easthampton zoning ordinance. The subject property is located at 106-108 East Street and zone residential rural B.
That's correct.
Okay. So, what seems to be the problem?
I'm Gary Kimball, and last year my wife and I sold a piece of property to the city, and as part of that sale, it was in July, as part of that sale, we had agreed to take off another piece of property that we owned at 106, 108, and we said we'd include that as part of the sale of the larger piece. They just needed to make sure that they cut it off, meaning had it surveyed, and we just wanted to make sure we were left with a legal lot, so there was no problem. And so now at this point, as it turns out, we're a little bit short on the square footage of the lot. So what we had as before a non-conforming lot because of frontage, now we have a non-conforming lot because of square footage also. Because the property is no longer owned, I understand, by the city, and it's probably owned by the state or some other entity, we're just, in order to alleviate this problem as easily as we can, we're hoping to get a variance for this property. It really doesn't affect the physical property at all. The house still has a lot of yard. It's an oversight that we're looking to probably correct the easiest way that we possibly can, with the least amount of
Was it surveyed when you, it was surveyed when you sold it, so a mistake was made during the survey process?
Probably, yes.
Okay, so we gotta correct it.
You know? It was made with the best intention.
Yes.
Yes.
And I can speak.
Yeah, okay, your name, please.
I'm Garrett Stover. I worked on this project with Piscataway Conservation Trust and Kestrel Land Trust. So at this point, the city does still own that property, but there's a conservation restriction on it that's held by Kestrel. And it was done with state funding, so it's under Article 97. So any adjustment to those boundaries is really, really complicated. And as was said, this was done in order to increase the size of the conservation land. So it was definitely done for public benefit.
Okay.
And yeah, there was some mishap between the surveyor and us and Garrett.
And it seems to be a 2,125 square feet or 2,175 square feet.
Because it's a two-family, the requirement was 40,000 square feet.
Correct.
In a 35,000 square foot zoning, and it just got missed. So I didn't realize it.
Okay. Maybe I can clarify it, John. Bob Cannon Real Estate, we're involved in the sale. Property was sold to a customer. When the customer found out that it did not have what we thought it was going to have, they backed out. So it's a non-conforming lot. That was no problem because it was pre-zoning. Then when you remove some land and made it less than 40,000 square feet, it became more non-conforming,
Right.
So that affects the title and the ability to sell the property because you don't have clear title anymore. And so without a variance, he has no ability to sell it, or let's put it this way, you can sell it, but you can't get insurance on it. And the bank will not mortgage a property without title insurance. So in order to correct it, you need a variance which says that, okay, it's non-conforming in size and in frontage, but it's been accepted by the city.
Okay.
So that's the purpose.
I'm assuming it's been a two-family for years.
Forever.
Yeah, okay, so,
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Bagel, the city planner. I just wanted to echo something that Garrett mentioned, which is, the understanding the variance is it's a rigid set of requirements that you have, and I think what is important for the ZBA to articulate, I guess, is that the shape of the lot is really the issue. And it's not necessarily because of the size, but it's because now the Article 97 is permanently protected land. And so that contributes to the shape problem, which basically on two sides of this property is permanently protected land. So we've we went full speed ahead to put it into full permanent protection.
Correct.
Not realizing that there was this problem. So on two sides of the lot, you are looking at permanently protected land. On, I guess maybe it's the west side, the other side is a lot that is also cannot be manipulated or reduced in size, and then you have the street frontage.
Right.
So the shape is that the lot is confined. There are no other solutions available to make this up. For your understanding and whether it incorporates into a finding, we did have some discussions about the possibility of going back and taking this 2,000 square feet back, and it would come at some great unknowns. There's an unlikelihood that this would we'd be able to get this land back. So the guidance that we received is that the city would have to find the equivalent or greater size lot somewhere else, have it surveyed, have it appraised, go through the acquisition process at city council, and once that was completed, you would go to the state legislature to make an amendment to the Article 97 process. And so that is a cost to the city, it's a timeline that would be lengthy, and then when we get to the state legislature, there was absolutely no guarantee that they would actually approve this.
Right.
So, but there's the application of the zoning is a real big problem, and I think as Gary kind of articulated, that there is no detrimental impacts to the neighborhood, and I think the uniqueness of this is that it's the Article 97 land that's adjacent to it, which we have no confidence that we can fix that.
Right.
So in terms of you as a board, I know that a lot of boards are concerned about granting variances and setting a precedent. I would say that you would be very unlikely to see another situation where the existence of Article 97 land, is the issue. So I think it's a unique situation for your consideration. So I think there's findings that you have to make. And again, I think the shape is based on its surrounding by Article 97 land. I know there are lots that can't be adjusted, so.
And I think that, my understanding would be is that if the clock could be backed up 6 months, 8 months, that 2,000 feet would have been included or excluded from the sale.
Yes.
And remained with the property.
That was the intent. That was certainly the intent.
Exactly. Yeah, when the land sale went through, it was with the intent that that lot would still remain a viable lot.
Right.
I'm assuming you helped write the proposed findings, the letter from the applicant?
We reviewed it. I mean, yeah.
So we already have some findings?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. All right. Is there any other? Does the board have any other questions, concerns?
I don't think we're setting a precedent.
I don't believe we are either. Okay. Is there anyone else from the public who's interested in speaking related to this matter? Okay. At this point, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. Is there any other further discussion within the board? We will go through and make review the variance requirements, just so we have them on paper. Okay.
Well, at the bottom of this letter, there are findings.
Yeah. So it's pretty much, it's already been written, but I just want to make sure that we have it covered. So, Section 13.13, the requirements for a variance. The variance must be with respect to a particular parcel of land or an existing building on that land. So, as was submitted, the proposed variance applies only to the subject property located 106 108 East Street. The transfer of the remainder of the original parcel of the city to the city of Easthampton occurred as part of a coordinated effort to preserve a total of 23 acres of adjacent land. The relief requested is the minimum amount necessary to ensure the property will conform to the area required for a two-family dwelling. So we're gonna grant the variance that of the 2,100 feet, a diminished lot size, because the balance has been donated to the city, or sold to the city. Okay, am I correct? Do we all agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. There must be circumstances related to the soil condition, shape, or topography especially affecting such land or structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located. There again, goes back to partnership with the city as presented. And a little enforcement of the ordinance would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or applicant. And the zoning requirement is for 40,000 square feet, and it would create substantial hardship for the owners. Okay? Desirable relief may be granted if there will not be substantial detriment to the public good or nullification or substantial derogation from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The request relief of 2,800 square feet will never be discernible from anyone traveling along East Street.
Right.
You know, it's the back of the property.
Right.
For all intents and purposes, I know that people walk through my backyard all the time. They do. So, I don't think it's going to be of any great detriment. All right. Is there any other questions or concerns from the board?
No.
Okay. So at this point, I will make a motion to grant a variance to Gary and Sandra Campbell of 22 Helen Drive for the property located at 106-108 East Street in the city of Easthampton.
Second.
Vote. Okay. Get the photo finish then.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion's made and carried. Same, you know, it'll be written up, and then there'll be a 20-day appeal period, after which point you'll be notified you can register with the Registry of Deeds.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Night.
We'll give you a minute to set up. Okay. Okay. You go through, you think everything's right?
Must have been a lot of red faces. Or a lot of this.
Finished?
Okay, I will open up the hearing for, we have an application from Matthew Gall at 110 Union Street.
Actually, 118 Union Street, they wrote it wrong.
Oops, 118 Union Street. See, I didn't even read it right. Okay.
No, they did it wrong.
Oh, well, no, that's
Well,
where they're
no,
located.
their
The property is located at
Oh,
118.
gotcha, sorry.
So that's why I'd like to stick to my agenda, because it has all the information here. Seeking a variance for a side yard setback and special permit to reconstruct a pre-existing non-conforming non-residential structure in accordance with section 11.13 and section 13.1 of the Easthampton zoning ordinance. Subject property is located at 118 Union Street and zoned downtown business.
Yes. So.
Your name, sir?
I am Terry Reynolds from T. Reynolds Engineering. And I'm here with Emily Holmberg. We're here because the hurry and scurry, as people know it, is in rough shape. It's been that way. And so at this point, the Gall family has been wanting to move forward with doing something with this building. And so in order to do that, it needs to be reconstructed, and what they'd like to do is they'd like to reconstruct it, but it is a non-conforming lot. So currently the building has only 4.08 feet setback for a side yard setback. It is only 4 feet in the rear. And so we're looking for a variance to allow for the reconstruction of the building with the given setbacks.
So the building you're going to reconstruct is not going to have any greater variance than what is currently there.
Right. Yes.
I have a real problem with your application, only because I think you're looking to rebuild it because the owner bought it over 20 years ago and allowed it to deteriorate. And I don't think the city has an obligation to grant variances because the owner didn't maintain his property. Your application also says you're going to put a second floor on it, which it doesn't have today. We don't have a site plan showing parking, any
Well,
standards.
we're only here for a variance for the
But
setback.
you're putting a second floor, so you're adding intensity to the lot, which requires more parking.
But,
And I go back to the
but
fact-
that isn't what we're here for. That will get dealt with in a site plan review application with the planning board.
Okay, well, I have a problem with the owner allowing the property to deteriorate. He's owned it for 20 years.
But that's not the purview of what we're here.
I think it should be.
There's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
We shouldn't grant a variance if someone allows their property to
I would also like to
deteriorate.
state that when that.
I'm sorry, can you
lot-
state your name?
Yeah, sorry, Emily Holmberg with Holmberg
Sorry,
and
I'm
House
having
Survey.
a hard time with the back and forth. So if
Yeah.
everyone can not talk over each other, then I can make the minutes.
In the application is the original lot plan that created that lot. And that building was there then. And it was, with all we're doing with the variance application is asking to keep the same sideline variant, sideline distance at the moment.
I have a question. So the application said that the southerly setback is 4.08 to 4.55 feet. Is it going to remain in that? Are you seeking to make it just be 4.08 feet uniformly, or will the 4.55 feet stay in the areas where it is?
Well, the intent is to put a building square on the lot, but right now, the 4.08 is what's being requested
So,
to maintain that.
so that about half a foot will be gone in certain areas, essentially.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, what we're proposing is a variance to maintain the nonconformity. And so the nonconformity on this side is the 4.08. I know it's a little more further back.
Right.
Eventually, it'll probably square the building on the property.
All right, so it could be squared to 4.55 feet.
Yeah, but we're
that's not
asking
what
for
they
the
want.
4.08
Right.
because that's what's there.
In certain parts.
Right. Well, that's the nonconformity. Yeah. The significant nonconformity.
So who reviews the plan and the parking? Will you come back here, or you just
No,
go?
that's a planning board.
That's a planning board issue.
That's site plan
Okay, then
approval.
I'm gonna have to vote no on this, because I just don't think it's right to the other property owners who maintain their property. They don't have a second
Well,
floor.
that's been punitive. I'm
No,
sorry. That is.
no, I disagree. I think the applicant allowed the building to deteriorate and now expects the city to bail them out.
But
We're not
We're not bailing them out. If they,
They're allowing him to take down a one-story building and build a two-story building.
We can't stop them from doing it.
Yeah.
if
If the building was in good shape, he wouldn't need a variance, he could just renovate it.
excuse me,
No.
yeah, Linda, if the building was in good shape, he could go get a building permit, put a second floor on that building, and never be in front of us. The only reason he is actually here is because the building did fall into disrepair, and he now has to demolish
Okay,
it.
well, I'm gonna have to
Jamie
vote no.
actually talked to that because actually that's
Can
not.
I request that the applicant finish their presentation and then
Yeah.
the board do the discussions and debate, and that way we cannot have the back and forth.
So I forget how it reads, but any significant renovation requires us to come to you.
Yeah.
Whether this was in good shape, bad shape, it doesn't matter. We would be here regardless.
Because it is non-conforming.
Right.
And because
Because-
it's a non-residential structure, there's no, any change to a non-conforming, non-residential structure requires the special permit for pre-existing non-conforming, and it requires the changes to conform to the ordinance or a variance to have been granted before
So-
that.
But they're
So the reason-
intentionally taking the building down. That's the difference.
So
But it's
I
an
guess that,
eyesore.
I mean, so when they came to discuss this with the planning department prior to the meeting, the recommendation that they were given was apply for the variance, and then after they receive the variance, apply for the special permit to modify, extend, or change. And then if they get that, then apply to the planning board for their site plan approval because their intended use requires a site plan approval. That was what they were.
Okay,
But I mean, it's up to the zoning board whether or not they meet the requirements or the conditions for variance and whether or not they meet the conditions for the special permit to reconstruct or demolish it. But, you know, without knowing what the full application is, can also condition variances and special permits so that the board, they have to come back to the board at a later point in time.
So I know this has fallen into disrepair over the years, but the point is this is something that they've wanted to do for a while, and they want to move forward with doing something with this lot. And I know this is something the city wants and everything else. So we're looking for a variance because of the shape of this lot. It's a narrow lot. I believe it's not even 50 feet wide. It's just over 40 feet wide. And if you make it any narrower, if it were to be fully conforming, it would put the width of this building at, I believe, 23 feet wide, which is not a very realistic width for a commercial and residential building. So the applicant would like to maintain these and get a variance to be able to reconstruct in that width and depth. So as part of this, we've written up, the issues here, with the lot. It's a shape issue with the size of the lot.
I just moved
And so we'd like to be able to get a variance for the rear and the side. Both sides are non-conforming, so one side is the 4.08, the other side is 5.45.
Okay. Okay. The intent is to still have, at some point, there'll be off-street parking, which will be all accessed off of Payson.
Yeah, I mean, the intent, this lot is here, and the Gulls also own this lot, so the intent will be that there will be parking back here for the facility.
Right.
I'm assuming if some of the parking is on the adjacent property, there'll be a permanent deed restriction on the adjacent property,
Yeah,
so that
would
if
go.
the property is sold, the parking goes with it.
Yeah, I mean, that will go with the permitting of this through the planning board.
Correct.
We're gonna end up looking at parking here and also need some spaces over here.
Because I went and looked, and it doesn't look like there's anywhere near enough parking for that building, let alone the second floor on that building, on that lot.
Yeah.
Right, so
No,
that's-
the majority will be able to be accommodated here, but they'll need more that need use over in the other lot.
Right, but that's a planning board issue.
Right.
And additionally, under the parking ordinance or section, that the existing structures in the downtown business district do not require off-street parking, but expansion or redevelopment would require off-street parking for that, the incremental between what was existing and what the new use would be.
So if they intentionally take it down, you still consider that existing? I would argue that it's not existing. That's why I have a problem with it.
Well, and that's why it's in front of the zoning board of appeals to me.
Well, I mean, the reality is they could rehab it in place.
Sure.
That would
And
not
I
be
would have
in
fun with
anybody,
that.
that would be anybody's interest.
And if the building was in good condition, and they decided they wanted to take the building down because the building, how it was laid out, whatever, couldn't sustain the construction of a second floor, and it was going to be less expensive to take down a perfectly good building and build a second floor on top of it, they would still have to come to us. The issue or the concern seems to be that because it has been left to go into disrepair, then we should not be as, I don't want to say forgiving or compliant or allowing. But the reality is, if they want to take the building down and put up a building that is equally, but not any greater, non-conforming than the existing structure,
Where's the problem? There's no parking.
That's not our problem.
To do with it.
But I think we have to look at the whole picture.
This is something that I can imagine that this board has approved many times before non-conforming lots being reconstructed. This is not setting any new precedent. This is something that has happened in time, since zoning.
Okay.
Not while I've been sitting here for a building that's been owned by the same owner for 20 years.
Yeah, but that's just because you're mad at him, you're being punitive.
I don't even know him. I've only lived in this town for 8 years.
Well, it doesn't matter. That's the
So
point.
I don't even,
Yeah, so,
I'm not mad at anybody.
If you look towards the sections 11.3 and 11.5, that talks about abandonment and non-use and reconstruction of condemned buildings. And to talk to Linda's concerns.
So those are damaged by an act of God. And I would, if it had burned down, definitely could put it back.
I just want to clarify that the building that they're seeking to build will be the exact same footprint as the building is right now.
Well, the special permit's gonna address what they wanna do.
Right. But it won't be any more non-compliant
Right.
to what is currently there.
Absolutely.
And that is our question.
I don't think it can be, because there's no room.
I understand. Okay, as it is, they're gonna have a hard time putting up a step ladder to work on the building. But they have to work well with their neighbors.
Right.
Okay, but so the reality is that the side yard setbacks, as requested, of 4.08 feet on the south side, we'll call it, and
And then 5.45 on the northerly side.
5.45 on the north side, the new structure will not be any more
Right.
non-conforming.
The non-conformities are, so we have, if you call this the rear yard, we have a 3.99, and we have a 5.45.
Yeah.
And when I move into the next one, I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do with it.
Okay.
But we're looking for a variance for it as it sits.
As it sits. Okay. And so we have to address it as a variance and make sure that we can meet the 4 requirements to be able to grant a variance. So do we all agree that that is what has to happen? Okay. So now I will ask, is there anyone else in the public who's interested in speaking concerning this application? Okay. So at this point, we will close the public hearing for the application for a variance. Okay. And we will review the questions required for a variance. Okay. There's 4 questions. The variance must be with respect to a particular lot, parcel of land, or an existing building on the land, which it reflects 118 Union Street. Question 2. There must be circumstances related to soil condition, shape, or topography especially affecting such land or structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located. That one is a little questionable because everybody in downtown district is close to each other, but I don't think everybody has the dogleg property that is on this piece of property. Okay. Literal enforcement of the ordinance would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant. Literal enforcement of the 10-foot side yard setbacks would limit the width of the building that could be constructed there to 23 feet. Okay. Desirable relief may be granted if there was no substantial detriment to the public good or nullification or substantial derogation from the intent or purpose of this ordinance. Well, personally, if anything, is going to be a substantial increase to the public good because we won't have to look at the hurry and scrape. Okay. There was no notification or no responses from, or comments from other city boards or anything regarding this application, which I found rather interesting. If that happens, we all know it happens. So at this point, I will make a motion.
Do you want to discuss the findings?
So
further?
let's discuss the findings further. Is there any other question, concern about issuing a variance to keep a structure on that lot no more non-conforming than the existing structure that is there? Okay. So at this point, we'll review section 11.13, which is pre-existing non-conforming structures. A pre-existing non-conforming structure, non-conforming non-residential structure may not be expanded, altered, or changed except with a special permit from the zoning board.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you want to finish, you closed the public hearing for the variance, you want to vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was part of the same thing, I'm sorry.
Vote on the variance and then open the special permit and then...
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought that was part of the same thing. Okay, so at this point, I will make a motion to approve the application by Matthew Gall seeking a variance regarding the side yard and rear yard setback for the property located at located at 118 Union Street and zone downtown business.
Second.
Second? Tony seconds. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries 4-1.
We've just finished writing.
No problem. Aye. Okay. I'll keep writing. I'm going to turn it off for
Okay. I'm caught up.
Okay. So now we have a request for a special permit. Correct?
Yep.
All right. What do you want to do with your special permit?
All right. So, given the variance with the special permit, what we'd like to do is to do the two-story building, and we'd like to build it in such a way so that it will allow for 4 units on the second floor and the commercial space on the first floor, so it would be a mixed-use building. And in doing so, this would be contingent on an A&R plan that pushes the property line back, so there'd be a taking from Union Payson condominiums. So we take this strip of land here, which would, and then the building would get extended back slightly, but we'd end up with a rear setback of 10 feet on here. We'd end up with a side yard setback of 9.31 on the north side.
That's in order to maintain a 10-foot setback behind.
Yeah, so by that we would improve and become conforming in the rear, be almost conforming on the side yard.
Right.
And then maintaining this side where it is. The building will likely, and as I say, it would be expanded, and then by doing this, right now, the non-conforming lot doesn't have the appropriate square footage also. So by doing this increases the lot area, so that will also become conforming.
Does the condominium property stay conforming if you're taking property away from it?
Of
As
course
far as
it does. Yes.
Do we have any standard for that building coverage parking? If you're taking land from the adjacent lot?
Well, that will be part of the A&R that will be subsequent to this. That has to be shown that this will not be made non-conforming.
Because it looks like that building doesn't have any parking. For,
This building?
yeah. I
This
looked at
has the entire shopping
No,
center
it's a
parking.
separate lot, and again,
No,
according
this
to
is,
the tax records, and I just looked at the tax records,
oh,
that online, the GIS maps, and the building with all the parking is a separate lot.
I would have Emily speak to that.
Yeah,
It is a separate lot, because
it is a separate lot, but I believe that there is an agreement with Advanced Auto, which leases the front part of Union Payson to have a certain amount of parking spaces. But even
But
though
shouldn't the
they're,
ZBA have those records, so before we approve something, that you're making that lot smaller, that we're not
we're not,
raising that
we're not
conformity?
asking for an A&R approval right now. We're simply asking for the special permit to construct the two-story building.
But don't we need the A&R first?
well, this is,
Well-
yeah, what this is showing is with the A&R, this is the maximum potential expansion area. It does not necessarily, the building is not designed at this point.
Okay.
So we don't know for sure that it's going to take up that amount of space. The plan is to get the approval not required plan approved to do this transfer, and that will show what the planning board, whatever they need to look at to separate this property out. And if then...
So the question
Yeah,
is,
that
so
doesn't
Emily,
happen. Yeah.
I believe this lot still stays perfectly conforming.
Yes, the lot itself is perfectly conforming.
How can it be perfectly conforming if you're making it smaller and it has no parking?
The parking's
The
separate
lot
from the lot.
conformance itself has nothing to do with parking. The lot is frontage, area, building setbacks, the
See,
conformance. The parking is a use conformance, not the lot conformance.
So if I owned a property and I had a building on it and that use on the property required 10 parking spaces and I had 10, by your argument, I could sell some of my land to the abutter and they could use my parking because the parking isn't part of it.
If you make the correct agreement with them, what I am saying is the lot itself, with this amount of area taken away, will be in conformance with frontage, area, building setbacks.
Correct.
I don't know about use conformance. We will look at that as far as producing the approval not required for the planning board, for them, for their, but,
The approval
That's-
not required will be in regard to reshaping the lot.
right.
We will have to come before the planning board for the actual use and the parking as a site plan approval
Right,
down the road.
for this lot,
So we
right.
have a variance, we have a ZBA special permit, followed by an A&R, which would expand this lot, okay? Which will also look at making sure that this still stays compliant.
Correct.
And then after that, we have site plan approval to actually do this use, which will look at the parking, stormwater management, the whole 9 yards. So it's four steps here.
Yeah, and the reality, and you brought it up in the first application, is that the lot as it stands doesn't have the available space to be able to provide the parking, so there has to be an agreement with
Yeah.
Yes.
There's gonna be an agreement for here.
the adjacent landowner, which in
Yeah.
itself is the same person, but there still has to be on record
Right.
an agreement to allow
Yes.
parking,
Yeah.
access,
It's actually an agreement on 2 lots, because it'll be an
Yes,
agreement
that lot
for this lot and this
and on
lot.
that lot. Correct.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
And as long as that agreement is in place,
yeah.
then
Now, that'll be part of the planning approval in order to actually do that building.
yes. And in doing so, if you expand this lot, like you said, you're keeping the property of Union Payson condominium, you're keeping it compliant for lot size, setback, everything like that. The new lot at 118 will expand. It will allow you to expand the rear of the building and actually make it compliant on the rear yard setback. The side yard setback will be less non-compliant.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
We
less
can't-
compliant.
right.
That's non-conforming.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm making sure I understand all this.
Right, we
And-
only have so far we
Right.
can move.
Correct. You're going from 5-foot side yard setback to 9.5
Nine.
foot.
Yeah, and so this is really about, we're here for the special permit for reconstruction of the building.
Correct.
So that's what we're looking at, and that's what the intent is. So we're showing you that the intent is to reform the lot, to make that happen.
And the width of the lot, assuming the A&R goes through, will still not be compliant with the 50-foot zoning at the setback line, but it will be more.
Correct. Okay. All right. You didn't make it so easy, did you guys?
Tough little lot.
Yeah, it is. But, okay. So we'll go through and we're gonna go through all of the requirements just to make sure that we have everything correct. The pre-existing non-conforming non-residential structure at section 11.13. The pre-existing non-conforming non-residential structure may not be expanded, altered, or without a special permit from us. You're here. Special permit will be granted and the ZBA finds that the proposed alteration, extension, or change complies with the zoning ordinance standards or has received a variance for such proposed alteration, extension, or change from the ZBA. So you just received a variance for a 5-foot setback, and now you're asking for a 9-foot setback. Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And that the proposed alteration, extension, and change will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure. Well, you're giving us technically a greater setback. The person driving down the road will not notice because you're moving a property line. You're not moving the building.
Not moving the
Sorry,
building.
sounds like you were concerned with the A&R piece of it.
If the A&R goes through.
The special permit to reconstruct or modify the pre-existing non-conforming structure, not the lot line piece of it.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, because the lot line is the next
Next
step.
right.
We're just showing you this is what our final intention is to be.
And
For this to move forward, this would be conditional on the A&R.
exactly, and that's what we're gonna have to put the condition that this would be approved on the condition that the A&R goes through.
Yeah.
Making sure we all agree on that. Okay. Abandonment, non-use and unsafe structures, 11.3 and 11.5. So 11, abandonment and non-use. Any non-conforming use structure and/or lot which has been abandoned within the meaning of the ordinance or not used for a continued period of 2 years or more shall be considered again unless, shall not be used again unless the structure and/or lot complies with the provision of this ordinance. So that's why you're here. And an unsafe structure, any structure determined to be unsafe may be restored to a safe condition provided such work on any non-conforming structure shall not place it in greater non-conformity, which you're saying it will be in less non-conformity, provided further, if the cost of the restoration of any structure shall exceed 50% than the physical replacement value, it shall be reconstructed only as a conforming structure and used only for conforming use. But you've been granted a variance to put the structure back non-conforming. So that kind of crosses out that little portion right there. But the conforming use, you will conform with the use for the property. It's downtown business, you can have mixed use.
Right.
So that's that one and that one. And the special permit requires 12.79. And half of this is kind of boilerplate.
Yeah, and one of the things that wasn't included on that was the locus map of properties within 300 feet.
Yep.
So I've got that along with the list of
Abutters.
abutters.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
If you have everything you need, do you want to close the hearing and have board discussion, or do you want to keep?
Well, do we want to go through the special permit criteria?
I think the more relevant ones are the ones in the pre-existing non-conforming sections, rather than the.
Then the special
But,
permit.
and, I mean, once you find the section 11 stuff, then the criteria for approval for special permits is
All right.
really about the it'll flow one way or the other.
All right. Okay. So you want to go through the pre-existing non-conforming again? Is that what you're saying?
I just want to
Make a motion?
if you got everything you need from the applicants, to close the public hearing
All right.
and have board discussion, because it seemed like there was a lot of comments and concern from the board prior to there
Okay.
actually being a real
So at this
discussion.
point, we will close the public hearing for the applicant. Board discussion. Questions or concerns?
I'm going to be another no. That's my only concern.
Was there any requirement for the public to be notified of
That's
this?
what's right here.
That's
what this is.
that.
The list of abutters.
Yeah, and they were the public notice was
That's what I mean. The public notice.
done by the
Was
planning
satisfied.
department prior to this meeting. I know it was done within the statutory limits, and that stuff is sort of, it's part of the special permit requirements, but we don't actually look at that because we get the more revised data from the assessors and go off that data. So this is sort of not really relevant at this point.
Okay. All right.
I don't have anything really.
You have no other questions, Jared? Okay. Linda, do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay. So, I think the one thing we need to make sure is that if we do approve this, that we have a condition concerning the approval of the A&R. Who approves the A&R?
The planning board approves A&Rs, but the zoning board cannot make conditional approvals. Like, you can't make a condition that some other board gives a permit as part of your condition.
So that we can't approve it?
You can approve it, you can't approve it with the condition that the planning board grants the planning board grants an A&R.
So at that point, how do we approve it?
Why can't you do that?
Because
Right,
there's state laws about conditions. It's a conditional approval. I'd have to go and find the case law about it, but it's been.
Seems to be do it all the time.
Well,
But
I mean, so you can say like you need to get your building permit, but you can't say like a condition that the.
well, I mean, like we'll often go to planning board, and part of the condition is that they get their approval from conservation. So I'm confused.
So
I mean that if it's not challenged, then and I'm not
I
at the,
didn't know
and
that
I'm not
was
at the planning
the
board
deal.
meeting, so
Yeah.
I don't know what goes on there. But if the zoning board made a condition that this application is approved on the condition that some other board issues an approval, then that condition isn't valid. You could
Can I ask a question? What we're asking, clarify if I'm right, what we're asking for is the approval, this approval of the special permit to reconstruct. We're showing the potential maximum build out. But that doesn't necessarily, we're not asking for approval to reconstruct that box, a building within that box. We're just asking for the ability to reconstruct what's actually being reconstructed is going to be done later.
Right, and then what John was saying was that he wanted to put a condition
Right.
that the planning board issues an A&R at a later point in time in order for this special permit to be valid. And so in order,
A&R can.
so,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is if we couldn't get the A&R, then you'd have to do a smaller building.
Exactly. So
but you could continue this meeting until after they get their A&R.
well, let's look at it this way. We've granted them a variance to reconstruct the building on the existing lot with the existing setbacks. So let's issue them a variance. So let's issue them a special permit to reconstruct the property and the structure on the existing lot in the existing footprint. If they then receive an A&R, they are then given the opportunity to expand the rear of the structure to that 10-foot setback and not have to come back because they're still within compliance. And would they have to come back and reapply because the side yard setback is technically non-compliant, but greater than, is less non-compliant than what we've granted them a variance? I don't think so.
I think they would. If you condition the variance to the side setback, so you give them a variance to the side.
You just can't make it more non-conforming.
Exactly.
But
They're making it less non-conforming. The challenge is that they are not making it conforming, the side yard. That's kind of that gray area. If you were going to, if your A&R was going to make the lot conforming and you were going to have a 10-foot setback, then there wouldn't be a problem. So at that point, do you say, do we, let you go get your A&R and then come back and continue?
Huh?
Well,
How long does it take to get an A&R?
2 weeks.
And you can go in there and say you have received a variance to reconstruct the building on the existing property?
I'm not sure it matters.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't for the A&R. It just, we didn't want to do the A&R until we had at least the variance.
Right.
Right.
And actually, the variance and the special permit are for the existing property lines, the existing building. What we're showing you is what we want to be able to do is make it better in the future following the A&R.
I mean, to close it tonight, I mean, would be just approving the reconstruction of the building within the given variance.
So here, and this is what, this is your option. We can continue the hearing until next month, and you don't have to reapply. Or we can approve to rebuild on the existing, and then if you go ahead and get your A&R, then you have to reapply. And I think your challenge may be, I don't know how fast you're looking to do all this, but I don't know if you're going to be able to reapply.
I think it'd be more expedient just to continue it if that's where we're going.
But that's the concern.
I think the concern is if you can get the A&R within 2 weeks and you can come back and you can be on next month's agenda, then we continue the hearing until next month.
Is that, we can do that in 2 weeks? We can have that ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, the next ZBA meeting is March 25th, and there should be at least one, probably two planning board meetings before then.
Okay, the next meeting, the next planning board meeting is next Thursday, which means tomorrow is the deadline for filing the A&R.
That's no problem with it.
I'll get the basics to Jeff. It's pretty much,
I mean,
shouldn't be a problem.
it's pretty much done. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of getting everything. You know what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think in an effort for, getting it done in a timely manner, it makes more sense to
Continue this
Continue
until
the
we have
hearing.
the approval not required plan.
Yes.
Okay. And so that is Wednesday the 25th.
Wednesday the 25th.
Okay.
That guarantees we will have a meeting now, ladies and gentlemen. Lest there be any questions.
And that will be back in conference room B. Our early voting will be done by then.
And parking might be available too.
What else is going on tonight?
City council.
Board of Public Works.
Oh, the water and sewer rate hike.
Oh,
This Board of Public Works.
So 6 p.m., March 25th.
6 p.m.,
conference room B.
March 25th, and we will put you first on the agenda to get you getting out of here.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, so do we need to make a motion to continue a hearing? I think we should. So I'll make a motion that we continue the hearing for the application by Matthew Gall at 118 Union Street.
Second?
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Anything else you want to adjourn the meeting?
So we know where our next meeting is. The submission deadline is Wednesday, March 4th for the meeting, to get on the agenda for next month. Okay? All right. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? All right. That sounds good.